Broadcasting from Ireland, featuring interviews with some of the biggest names in magic. Welcome to the Deceive Reality Podcast with your hosts, David Peace and Steve Spade.
And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Deceive Reality Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. And we have a very special guest here today, Oz Pearlman. Oz, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hey, David. Thanks. Steve, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Now, we always start the podcast with a very cliche question, and everyone gets it. So we'll start off with, how did you get into magic? The most cliche question you can have.
Hold on, I'm turning off my do not disturb. I don't want to hear emails. How did I get into magic? So I was 13 years old. Me and my family in like the States, a lot of people have bar and bat mitzvahs. If you're Jewish, you have big parties. We had no party. I had nothing, very small, nothing. Instead, we went on a cruise. That was kind of like a big thing. My grandma came. I'd never been on a cruise. And on the cruise, we saw a magician. And I don't know if my dad bribed the guy. I don't know how it happened, but he did more than one show. And on the second show, my dad got me up on stage, and the guy did the sponge balls to me. So I'm on stage doing sponge balls. And I kid you not, the rest of the cruise, all that we talked about, I stalked this guy. I tried finding out which room he was in. I mean, it was creepy. He did like one session where he showed close-up magic on some sort of Lido deck. I was there, man. I was like, I would not leave him alone. And I swear to God, thought that the sponge balls had some sort of NASA material that body heat would make them split or disappear based on how hard he had me squeeze them. I'm not even kidding you right now. And I got back home. I went to my local library. I checked out every single book. I think they had one volume of Tarbell. They had Expert Card Technique. They had Royal Road Card Magic, and that was it, man. That was it, deep dive. From that moment on, a few months later, I went to my local magic store, and I was obsessed. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah. Awesome. Definitely. Those sponge balls do kill you.
Well, I'll make fun of them occasionally. I judge them a few years later, but man, they're a classic of magic for a reason. That moment is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember when I saw a lot of people, giving out about it. A lot of pros saying, this, that, and the other, and then people starting off to, it's like a kid's trick kind of thing. But I remember seeing, I think it's in David Blaine's book, and he's doing sponge balls for Jack Nicholson, and I'm like, what if it's good enough for Jack Nicholson? It's good enough for anyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. Sometimes you get caught up in your own thing, which is kind of like comedians, right? Comedians go, that's a hacky joke. But if it's very funny, the audience is the judge, never us. Like it's taken me a long time to reverse engineer my thinking. And it's like, if it's important and they love it, go with that. They're what's important, not us.
Yeah, very true.
You always hear people saying like, oh, it gives people the sponge ball feeling of magic. And it's just like such a good thing. And we always overcomplicate the method until we find out how it's done.
Right.
If someone can come up with those NASA sponge balls, I think they might sell pretty well at Black.
They're like $8,000. We're putting them out, limited edition. You don't have to do a retention pass. You just really put one in, and you'll be like, "I'll buy it. I'll buy two." Are they? They're pre-order. They're pre-order.
Rocco's probably working on that as we speak.
Well, he's have it out in 2021, Q3.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, when you're getting into magic, I recently, not so recently anymore, switched a lot more into the mentalism side and stopped doing a lot of magic. How did that happen for you to switch into the more mentalism mind reading side?
So I would say it's like a branding decision. It's almost like a new logo. It's ridiculous to say, but what happened, and just so everybody knows, my daughter's here, so you'll see me looking over, and that's me making sure she's alive and well. She's a very good girl. I don't want to jinx it, but when I went on America's Got Talent in 2015, the year before Matt Franco had won as a magician, I was doing some mentalism, but also some magic. I almost considered it a crutch. I felt like doing all mentalism just feels so like, oh, but I got to do a trick or two. It felt like jumping off a cliff without a net. It just felt very risky. Yeah. But on the show, I had to set myself apart in a way. And so I just jumped in and said, I'll do mentalism, because a few of the things I was doing was mentalism. I felt it was a little bit limiting, but to some degree, you can spin off mental magic in a certain way if it has the right feeling. I mean, I've seen people do what are 100% magic tricks, and when done properly, they seem completely like mentalism. That's all it is a matter of framing, right? Same way a director can make a comedy into a horror movie. Like, it's that little twist is all that matters. It's tone and presentation. So that's when I kind of went into mentalism fully. And at this point, that's almost all I do.
The first time I saw you, he's gone. He's vanished.
That was another magic.
That's more of an illusion, yeah. The first time I saw you was with Penguin with the Born to Perform, and I remember seeing that, and I was like, it's just like 4 or 5 solid tricks, but when they're such good workers, you know, and they really are a fundamental. And I remember you had that part where it was like fundamentals, where you're just teaching the nitty gritty. There was no kind of fodder, we'll say, put into that DVD. It was really working material.
I was very proud of that DVD. That DVD got me all around the world. I lectured, in like over 40 countries. I was in Asia, and this isn't even a magic store. I'm just walking on the street, and I see one of those guys with the blanket with the fake DVDs, and I go, "That's my DVD!" You've made it when you're in Singapore, and some dude has a version of you dubbed that he's selling for like $2. I'm like, "What is going on here?" That DVD was, that DVD. I don't want to I made very little money on it, just so we understand. Like, the deal was not great for me, but what it did for me exposure-wise was amazing. I was a 21-year-old kid, was like on par with almost like the way Michael Amar was to me, where I saw the L&Ls growing up. It is weird to say, and I'm not saying in a non-humble way. That's what that video was to a lot of people, like that weren't even that much younger than me, because I was 21 when it came out. There were kids that were 14, 15, 16, who now when I meet in my 30s, they're like, "Dude, you're my first DVD." I've had a lot of people, and I go, "How much of an age difference are we?" They're like, I was 16 when I got it, and you changed my life. I'm like, I can't even believe that. But it's wild, because that DVD, I was a restaurant worker since I was 14. I got a restaurant, and I had restaurants all the time. That is how I became a semi-pro and eventually a pro. It was restaurant, anywhere from 1 to 4 restaurants a week. That's how I got all my skills. And you know how it is. Restaurants, you cannot have weak material. If you do, you're just not a very good performer. But you got to be hitting it hard, and that's really what Born to Perform was for me. It was tricks and moves that are flashy, defined your skill, and left out very much fat. I can't do multi-phase unless each phase builds. I learned how to structure and act.
Yeah, no, it was a great DVD. And one of those tricks I've often talked about with Dave is just the biddle trick. We all forget to do it, but it's such a good trick. So good. It's just like we just discussed, the sponge balls. It's one of those moments where it's in their hands and it's a surprise. And there's so few surprises in magic nowadays, in mentalism as well, that aren't linear. A to B. Oh, here's an envelope. Oh, I know where this is going. Or, oh, put this in your hand and wait till this one goes. Oh, it's going to jump. Like, you know what's going to happen. You don't know it here. You don't know it until you go look in your hand and go, oh, and that feeling is just so great because it stays with people.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of those iconic routines. And like sticking with the penguin stuff, I remember I got the A Sucker is Born every minute like bank night routine. I think it was one of the first like bank nights I'd seen, and now there's bank nights everywhere, which is such like a good start for it. And there was
there's so many of those, like the penguin videos. So I don't know if you want to dive into this. I don't want to sidetrack you, but I met the guys who started Penguin, and they started it in apartments while they were at, give me one second. At the University of Michigan. I met these two guys when I was working at a restaurant, and they started this in like an apartment where the whole apartment was just racks of magic stuff. And this is before online magic retail was a thing. I'm like, wait, you're going to sell magic tricks online? How is that possible? Give me one moment.
No problem. The joys of
Cue Michael any minute.
Yeah. That's why I don't have any kids. Yeah, freedom.
You're like the Wes Barker thing, man. 100%.
Yeah, I get a good night's sleep every night. It's amazing.
You don't get sleep, you prick. Yeah. But no, it's funny.
David has that young skin. David, beautiful facial hair. He gets all that sleep, all that beauty sleep, my man.
Yep. And but yeah, I think the history of Penguin is, as you were saying, is very interesting, because I was going to ask you about that, like how you first got involved with them.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of revolutionized the craft. Like when we were doing it, it doesn't seem like it now, but we did the first instant downloads, and it was like, blasphemy at the time. I was getting hated on at the Magic Cafe. People I'd meet, I felt like I was a pariah. And now there's who's mailing DVDs to anyone, right? It was like the Netflix streaming before, when Blockbuster was still big, and people thought you were cheapening magic, you were exposing magic, and just creating the demo videos, which we would just sit. We would go. Eventually, went from Michigan to Vegas, and I'd go to Vegas, and these were epic shoots. I'd go there for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. I lived in New York. I worked in finance at the time, and I'm talking sometimes I'd go there for 3 days and we would just stay for 2 more days and we would shoot around the clock. Not healthy, but all morning we get like 100 tricks out. I go through them like a machine. I read every instructions. I practice. I make my own presentations. At night, we go to Vegas Strip. We shoot 10, 15, 20 tricks. Next morning, it's like do all the instructionals and lather, rinse, repeat. In like a weekend, we do 100 and something tricks. And it was I knew so many people that would tell me like, man, I just want to buy more and more and more because every trick looks awesome. Because you'd never see these tricks. You go to a magic store. What do you do at a magic store? What's the new thing? Oh, show me that, show me that. You max get to see 4 demos. You're at home watching Penguin Magic. You're literally looking at 100 and you're like, oh, I got to buy them all. Like it was a hit of crack cocaine. You're hooked. And it was so fun being a part of it. And it was just very fun to be a part of something on the ground floor and inventing a new category, if you will.
Definitely. And I think we're all thankful that we don't have to have, like, I have a box beside me that's full of Magic DVDs, another box on the other side of me full of Magic DVDs, but with the instant download, that's so good. There's no space taken up. And I tried to watch a DVD the other day, an old one, and I was like, side laptop, oh, no DVD player there.
It was a DVD player. That's exactly right. I mail them to people sometimes, and I don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't have a DVD player either. I'm bringing my girl in frame. She's getting her celeb appearance here on Deceive Reality. We might bring her outside in a minute. Everybody's in the pool.
When she's a famous mentalist growing up in a number of years, be like, first appearance.
First appearance right here, Esme Pearlman.
Lovely name. Oh, she's happy when she's on. She's getting the attention on camera.
Yeah.
I don't know if she likes the camera yet. I don't know about that. That's an interesting thing. I can see if Mom can take her, but she didn't like the pool. And I made a trade-off today. I really like running, and we just happened to be in Florida, the first travel that we've done in a year, and it's too nice out for me to stay inside. So the run had to happen, and then this was the trade-off afterwards. I got to take the daughter.
It's a good deal. Which, yeah, even as you're saying with the Las Vegas Strip stuff when you're performing, that's still like the iconic Penguin in demo is seeing performances on the Vegas Strip, and it's so different to like the L&L studio audience. It was a revolution, really. It was.
I think it was very real and very you get very genuine reactions of all different people and a lot of diversity. So people watching it. Also, David Blaine completely reinvented our category, right? Street magic was so big in the early 2000s. Like everyone was emulating him. He was legendary. It was just legendary what he did. And I'm not going to say we're copying him, but I think that everyone turned the camera from the performer to the audience, and that's what he reinvented.
Definitely, the reaction.
Well, the audience kind of became the star.
Definitely. I really think the reactions to everything. I was even just making a new show reel today, and I was like, I'm not in like my entire show reel. It's just the audience.
Somebody else in.
Yeah. Like it's all old clips of David Blaine. I just cut out the audience. Like there you go.
A really good Photoshop job on the face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's easier because Blaine doesn't really talk much, so you just pretend when the frog is coming out, it's your mouth.
Yeah. Just redub all the stuff, and you'll just go fight.
It's a gray area.
So there's such a big jump then, it's from like Penguin to like America's Got Talent. I mean, obviously there's a big, decision of like you going on the show. How did that come about?
So I wasn't a fan of the show until about 2 years before I was on it, but I became a real fan. Like I really liked watching the show. I'd watch every episode. I was a very genuine fan. When Howard Stern started on it, I got really into it because I liked Howard Stern. And one of my really good friends from college, his brother was obsessed with Howard Stern, and just every single time he'd see me, like, you got to go on the show, you got to go on the show, you got to go on the show. And I'm like, I'm not gonna. I really didn't believe it would go that well. I don't know why, but I wasn't that confident about it. I thought it was a show where you need a real story. You need to have like this human interest piece. Like I haven't been sick. My folks got divorced, but I've had a pretty good life. You know what I mean? Some difficulties here and there, but not like the stories I've seen on there. And so I tried out once. And I got a producer call, which if you know what that means, it's kind of like a fancier version of a producer hears about you and they call you in and they open up that velvet rope and you go to the front of the line. And when I did that, I did not have a proper audition. They brought me into a room, and in the room, there was nobody but a camera person. And I'm like, yo, I'm doing like a trick that involves another person. It was a mentalism trick. And there was nobody there. so it's like a hypnosis act with no person. What are you going to do? Like, I don't have anyone hypnotized. So it did not go well. They wanted me, and they were like, should I use the camera person? And it just tanked. And I like, done. So that didn't go well. The next year, it was too cold out, and I had a lot of shows. So the big thing is I was a worker. Even when this was happening, I was working a ton. I was big in the private party scene in New York City. I was much more of a local act. But in New York City and the areas surrounding it, I was very known within like certain circuits, not really a larger scale act at this point. And so it was like freezing cold the day they did the trial, the cattle call. I mean, like in Celsius, like -20. I'm like, screw this. And then the next year, I went to one of the cattle calls, which means there's, I don't know, 3,000 people in a huge airport hangar the size of like 2 football fields. I waited all day. I went in there and I did not care. And you'll always hear movie stars talk about auditions where they don't think they're going to get the role anyway, so they just don't care. I went in there like I own the place. I literally in my audition, so they bring you in, you do one thing you get bounced from room to room. The more people they have you see, the better you're doing. And in the last one, I did a trick, the same trick I did for the other ones. They loved it. They're like, can you do something else? And then I like, not even without a second thought, I'm already ready to go. I do another thing. And then I go, we don't have to do anymore. Like you call off the auditions. You found the guy who won the $1 million. Like, I'm just joking. Like I literally, I'm telling you, it's not coming from a place of overconfidence. It's kind of like, what do I care? And that not caring is just the most refreshing feeling to them, because everybody else has this nerves, this energy, this not being present, and doing it in that way just really worked out well. And I went right through, and I kind of every single round, I'm not going to lie to you and say I wasn't nervous, but I was very focused. Every time I did a round, I knew I was going to do everything I could to nail it. And kind of the material, if you go back and watch the next, it was a little risky. Like I don't know on this podcast if you reveal stuff, but if you watch my first round, there's real danger involved in doing something that's real-time mentalism that, involves a word that starts with a P and ends with a K and has like a couple vowels in the middle. Like I think you know what that means. Where if handwriting's bad, if you don't see it, if anything happens, you're done. You're done. Do you understand what I mean? There is no out. You have a minute and a half. You better nail everything you're doing. And it was like go big or go home on some of those routines. So that's how I had to go for it.
I think a lot of people go for a force at that stage because they're just like, I know I can force something, so I'll just force it all the time.
I think that's the case in a lot. I'm just grabbing past you. Sorry about that.
No problem.
What it does, me?
Yeah, it's true. You see a lot of people that are trying to cross over from magic to mentalism, and they just end up forcing everything.
Right. And you don't get those big moments. The big moments with emotional reveals. And I'm a very big proponent when I do a lot of the mentalism is that it has to have a story. What I mean by that is I don't mean like my grandfather taught me whatever. I mean, the person that tells it needs to have a very easily parsed story about what it is that occurred. If it's not able to be told in 1, maximum 2 sentences, I don't do it. And it should have an emotional connection. When I see tricks that don't contain a nugget of emotion related to the person, it gets like, even if it's a card, I have a card trick that I'll do. The card trick will connect to somebody they care about. Like think of somebody you played cards with as a kid that you no longer see. Oh, it's your grandfather, wonderful. And then that's connected in some way. Even if it's tangential, I need to have something that will relate later that's like, oh my God, he knew my grandfather's name and I played cards with him and he said ace spades. Like something that has a connection that will be remembered.
It's a lot more than just a card trick then, you're making it about them. And it's like what you said with the sponge balls. We might think that, it's a kind of an old hat trick, but it's the feeling that they have when they open their hand. It's how they feel about the magic, not about how we feel about the magic.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
I answered your question. I don't know. So that was it. I got on America's Got Talent, and then every round was just the experiences. It's amazing. Like I had nothing but great experiences. I know some people that'll have worse experiences. Some people have equal, but I mean, the show changed my life.
Yeah. I remember there was the Ireland's Got Talent. They tried it here for 1 year, so I decided to have a go. And I was at the table, and there was the big golden buzzer that they have now right in the center. And it took every part of my willpower not to press it for myself, just to see what happened. I was just like, even at the end, I was like walking past it, like my finger just brushed above it. And I was like, I want to know, is it like real or is somebody else, do they press it and somebody else has to do something?
For sure press it where somebody else presses it, 100%.
Yeah.
Guaranteed, I can tell you that from the TV production, they press it and somebody backstage is shooting off like all the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I want confetti. Give me confetti.
Yeah, I want confetti. Somebody needs to do a hypnosis routine. One of my good buddies, a guy named Chris Jones, he was on my season, and he did a thing where Howie Mandel, who's a famous germaphobe, he hypnotized him to shake everyone's hand in the audience. He made him imagine he was wearing a latex glove, even though he wasn't. He shook everyone's hands, and he had massive. He didn't make it past the second round, which is, oh man, I'm sorry, guys. Something that was a bit of that's a longer story, but man, did he get great publicity off that, like making Howie Mandel shake hands. And I'm like, what if he would have made Howie Mandel hypnotized to put the golden buzzer? Like, I thought about that. I'm like, dude, that's your like.
Or you could just come out
and hit the golden buzzer,
full of energy, and be like,
would have made him do that. I wonder what the rules are. That would have been very smart to find out.
I'm just saying you could come out like full of energy and be like high fives for everyone, but the last time just like put your hand down, and when they go to slap your hand, just move your hand.
Boom, just right there. I love it, Steve. This is it. You know what? I think you go on BGT, you got yourself a way to get right to the final round.
Just do that.
Why are you putting this on a podcast? Why? What do you think? This is gold.
The judge would have to be like, oh yeah, but you just fooled me to do it. And I'm like, I'm a magician.
I'm a magician. This is on you. This is on you. I'm literally called Deceive Reality.
We had some questions sent in when we were talking about this around AGT. Someone was asking James, like, do you have any advice for standing out on a Got Talent show? Because there's a lot of magicians, more and more every year going on it now.
God, such a tough one. So the two things I would suggest that I've thought of that I don't know if seem to really work is one of two things, right? One is you either do something nobody else is doing, which is very difficult to do, but you do something nobody else does. Like look at a Shin Lim, look at a Will. Well, a Shin Lim is not a good example because it falls into my second category, which is do something better than anyone else does it. And Shin Lim falls into that category. Versus like a Will Tsai did like, I think the most viewed magic video of all time from any of the Got Talents with the roses on the table. And that was something just so spectacular and unique. But then again, there's a gentleman out in the UK, God, it's going to kill me. I don't remember his name, Jamie, who did cartoon. And every single one of us got forwarded that. Do you guys remember when he did cartoon? Everybody I got forwarded like 20 times by my family members, by everybody. I'm like, how is this going viral? But it was well executed. It was done well. It was unique, but it was like Dan Harlan cartoon. I think there's a way to, I don't think there's a way to define what you're going to do on the talents that's going to set you apart. They've seen most tricks. I think that the confidence you bring is very different, like is what's going to sell you. Everyone you see on there has some level of confidence or uniqueness, whether it's a child act, whether it's somebody an adult, a likability, or something unique about you. And that's one of those things you really have to find a way to define. And if it's your storyline, once you get further along, you have to decide what your narrative is. Mine tended to be like, I worked on Wall Street, I had a great job, and I kind of threw it all away to pursue my dream to be a full-time performer. And that's something a lot of people can relate to, because how many people are working jobs that they don't like, even if it's not Wall Street, and you're like, screw it, I want to go do this, I want to be this, I want to be that. And people can relate to like, hey, saying screw it and going for something. And then here's your chance. It's kind of like, in some ways, the Susan Boyle, the frumpy woman who sings in the shower, who suddenly we make into a star. The Got Talents, their storyline is, we're going to make you a star. You were nothing before. Now you're going to be like a world known. That's what they want to, that's what they're selling. So you need to find a way to feed into that. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, you can see that. It's not like an orchestrated hook or anything, but it is what will make you stand out from, the guy doing the same trick maybe or whatever. If you have kind of a style or an image or something that just is very much you. We did speak about with Michael Amar when he was on the show about like if you have other talents to kind of mix that other talent with your magic to make your magic even more unique. I think that's
texture always helps, right? Texture, like having some context, having something about you that's people feel like they know you as a person. Think about the people that you admire and respect. Most of them are multifaceted in some way. They're not just one thing. Very rarely. I don't know. Well, I guess with sports, it's different. Athletics are the only one that's very different. You want people to stay in their lane, kind of, and you don't want somebody who's playing one sport and playing another. And I don't know. People really like winning. I think with the arts and performances, I think people like it when there's, I don't know, something unique about someone.
Yes, no, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
It's kind of like when Michael Jordan decided to give baseball a go. People like,
yes, it really went well.
Let's take it to basketball. Yeah, you don't want to do that sort of thing.
No.
definitely a bit much. And then we're all living in this virtual world now. But how have you been finding have you tried doing the virtual shows and all that sort of stuff?
I have my daughter at every corporate event, by the way. No, I'm kidding. This is not my
You have an index down the back of her.
Right. Yeah. She does all my switches off camera. She's very good 1% of the time. People know she's there if she's crying. But no, I went through this. Sorry. I might bring her outside. Sorry, guys. You guys are being so patient. Nice. I'm
pretty sure she's just one of those raccoons. Like you're just puppeting her the whole time.
I went through, I think what everybody went through, which is in March when all the gigs fell apart. Almost exactly a year ago, to be honest. I remember my last flight was March 12th. And my January and February were slammed. I mean, January, I was gone like 22 nights. I was really such a different life now because I used to be on the road so often. And this is the first time I'm not at home right now. It's the first time I've traveled in literally a year. But what happened was I went through a month of just like, I felt great. You know why? First off, I didn't really think I was going to get COVID and die. So that's like the number one thing is if you're actually fearful for your life, it's different. Second, I have savings. So, and third, the most important was everybody else was in the same boat as I was. Do you understand what I mean? There was some sort of like gallows humor where you're amongst everyone. I'm like, nobody's working. So it's kind of like a forced vacation. Hey, let's watch Netflix. Let's have drinks every night. Like it was kind of like, it was almost like a way to not feel bad about slowing down because my life was very, very fast and very much like working a ton. So I enjoyed it for about a month and a half until I saw some of my competitors starting to do Zoom shows. And then I'm like, oh my God, I got to start working again. It was the opposite feeling. I started getting anxiety of like panic, like I got to start doing this. And I just thought these Zoom shows are going to go nowhere. Who wants to watch this on Zoom? But by September, I would say like July and August were my learning kind of lessons, going through the motions and figuring out how to do this, not only the tech, but the material. And then going into about September is when it's really started humming. And then October, I couldn't believe it, but this became a very, very real thing and became very, very busy. And just word of mouth, kind of some marketing, but not as much, just started doing shows more and more often. And I can't believe it. It's like a real profession now.
Yeah. Whoever did the first one really killed all of our vacations because we were like, I think we were all enjoying Netflix and chilling for a while.
No doubt about it. That was a big one. Hey, Louis, my 2-year-old just came in. The party begins. I might have to leave you guys soon. I might go another room. Okay.
It's the great family life. That's what's important.
Juggling golf. Yeah, the Zoom shows. I enjoy them. I've gotten to the point where I really do enjoy them now.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just like getting into a rhythm, it's so different and new, and then you just keep.
I'm coming over to one sec.
No problem. The joys of family life, but yeah, I definitely agree around the Zoom shows when you're in a situation like. You just have to get used to it. Like I remember after the first one, just being like, "This is the worst feeling in the world. I can't hear people applauding." I'm finished.
Yeah. Oh, you gotta check your ego at the door for the early ones when you just wouldn't hear anybody, and it was just like, "Oh God, this is." Whew. I mean, I can give a pretty. I don't. Is this a PG-13 reference? I could. I have a too risque of a reference, but anyway, yeah.
Always swear and everything on this show. It's fine.
Say what you want.
It reminds me, there was a girl in college who would never make any noise. And when we were like a girl I was dating, and I'm like, "Are you even enjoying this?" And it felt exactly like, "Yeah, it's great." I'm like, "You zero. You're silent." And so,
yeah.
It was just like that. I'm like, is anyone and learning how to unmute and then mute people because God forbid you have 10 people unmuted, and then really choice of material, which is where. To a large degree, you got to decide how you're going to stand out. And if you're doing a mentalism show, what's your mentalism show going to look like if you don't have those emotional reveals, or how do you do them? So I kind of reinvented my show, greatly reinvented my show.
I remember my first show was a lot of equivocate. I was like, I need to like,
it was fire and throw them down. Did you see them as they landed? What did you see?
Exactly. Yeah. And then a bit of one ahead and you're done.
Yeah, my show is quite different. So yeah, it's
But it's good. It's those little challenges that make us all kind of think outside the box, because we all can get kind of complacent with different, you're doing routines for so long, or you're doing a live show, your live show. It's a nice challenge.
We have a lazy profession. I mean, think about comedians who every year have to have a new comedy special of 1 hour of new material. If there's no mentalist in the world that could compete with any of the least prolific comedians over 3-4 years, we probably have less material in a full lifetime than most comedians have in a 3 to 5 year stretch.
Yeah, very true.
And if you look at like people from the 70s, and I'm not knocking it, like legendary mentalists, they lived their whole life on a full act. Like they had a 60-minute show, and you almost never even had to change it. You polished that diamond until it was perfection. And if you saw that act, oh my God, unbelievable. If you saw it a third time, you know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? Like it was very much a one and done. But there's enough people in the world, very few have seen mentalists, you can really make a living.
Even the vaudeville acts, the majority of them only had like 10 or 15 minutes of an act, and that was it. That was your act. But you, like you said, you traveled the world with that one set piece.
To this day, I think a lot of the Got Talent acts are just like that. They can't really carry a full show.
Yeah,
it's a very niche type of act. If it's not very adaptable, the key is adaptability. And I think that's where mentalism really shines, because if you can read someone's mind, it's a blank canvas. It's like painting. I could paint anything. So if you are adept as a mentalist, you can customize your material to the audience at play. Like if you can do something with words, you can do something with images. What word is that? It's the logo of a company. It's the topic of a conversation. It's the demographic that matters, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Especially when you come off the show, I mean, obviously everyone wants to talk to you then, or if you're out, people want to, can you read my mind kind of thing. Did that happen just kind of like overnight, as in as soon as you did like the first 1 or 2 parts, it started happening straight away, or was it kind of when you wrapped up?
So it's amazing. So the first 3 rounds of America's Got Talent are not live, or the first 2 rounds. They film sometimes months before. Okay, so you'll be doing stuff where you were just on America's Got Talent. So I had a very funny moment where my first America's Got Talent went pretty well. And then my second one was really, this routine in the second one went not viral, but I did a pretty famous trick of mine where somebody picks a celebrity and I cut out their face. It's like Phantom Artist, 21st Century Phantom. And it was a very reputation-making trick of mine in my show, but also on TV it went well. And I was doing a bar mitzvah in Maryland that I had flown down for. And the night before, or 3 days earlier, my thing had aired and it got a lot of time. Like the way AGT works is generally you can watch, and if they give you 9 minutes versus a montage, it's only like 2 minutes, you have a much higher likelihood of going forward. And I knew I was going through because it had already filmed. But they gave me a very big piece and a big B-roll piece and all this. So people knew who I was. And the show did very well. So anyway, long story short, I'm at this party and this woman is telling me, and this became a running theme, oh my God, we saw this guy in America's Got Talent. He was so good. He did this thing and he cut out. And I'm like, that was me. And she's arguing with me. That wasn't you. That wasn't you. This guy was crazy. She's like, I saw it 4 days ago. I'm like, yeah, it was me. And it was funniest thing in the world. This is like in 2015. People wouldn't Google stuff as much, but they would. Yeah. Finally, I'm like, lady, do you want to get your phone out? And she gets her phone out. And then she Googles it. She looks at him. She goes, not you. And I'm like, it was amazing. It was just comedy while strolling. And it became a theme where I was almost like Superman when I was on that show. And Superman, in the sense of when Superman takes off his suit and he's in the costume, you recognize him. If I went somewhere day to day without a suit on, nobody knows who I am. As soon as I put a suit on and I'm in context, people are like, oh my God, you're the guy in AGT. But yeah, the 15 minutes of like actually being recognized happened in like the 2 weeks after the finale. And then people would see at airports, and I got 3rd place on the show. And what happened is I was actually very happy. I'm saying this genuinely. I didn't think I was going to win the show ever. So getting 3rd, I was pretty jazzed. But what happens is everyone that sees you, imagine like 15, 20 times a day, everywhere you go, people are like, oh my God, you should have won. And you get to the point where you're like, damn it, maybe I should have won. Like you start getting annoyed because all these people keep telling you should have won and that you were their favorite. But honestly, that was very mild in comparison to just being very happy because my finale went really well. And my finale was very risky and it almost didn't work. I mean, I could dissect it for you, but it was legitimate risk. It was not like maybe like a lot of danger acts that are like they say. Some of the danger acts are dangerous. I'm not trying to knock people, but I'm being legit with you. Like it had a lot of ways it wouldn't have worked and the producers knew it and it's live TV. So if something goes wrong with like the production and this, I have no outs. There's no backing up or outs. So I went for it. I'm like, you got to do it. So when you see me going nuts at the finale, like I was like screaming, it was like a energy release of like an Olympian because I was that nervous about how it would go.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's one of those things where you're like, you're in the final, you're probably not going to do it again, so why not go all out and just like risk it all for?
Yeah.
There's no point holding anything back at that point.
It all happens too fast too. It's not like when you see it in hindsight, you always think like, oh, I could have done this. It's probably like somebody, in the World Cup or in the Super Bowl. Like you're in the moment, your time is traveling differently. I also didn't plan my rounds. Some people always say, oh, I planned this round. Those people almost never make it through. I planned nothing. I didn't know what I was going to do the next round each time. And from the quarterfinal to the semifinal, I had a 5-day turnaround, meaning like I went through. Oh no, from the semifinal to the final. My turnaround was 5 days. Like on a Tuesday, you do the show. Wednesday, you get the results. You're on the highest of high. You're like, oh my God, I'm in the finals. And at like 11 p.m., they walk into your dressing room and like, what are you doing next time? I'm like, oh. And you have a sleepless night because you're adrenaline and you're panicking. And the next morning, I'm calling like 2 or 3 people because I didn't have a consultant. I didn't have anything. I had like a couple people I bounced ideas off of. And it was almost like a writer, just what do I do? What do I do? What's an idea? What's an idea? This will be great. This will be great. And I just found a theme, and then I went backwards from the theme to do the chair test. Like my whole theme was, you know what? Everyone that watches this thinks it's rigged. I would think it's rigged. If I was watching this show, I'm like, this is all fake. And the problem is you can't use random audience members because they don't allow it. You have to use the judges, and the judges are famous people. So I can't guess your birthday. It's on Wikipedia. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not like when you do a morning show or a show with an audience, like Jimmy Fallon or something. So you have to conceive of how you're going to do a routine that's amazing based on random choices, not past occurrences, and still have an emotional hook. And that's kind of how I came up with the whole routine. And it came together within like 24 hours.
I only watched it recently. Yeah, the chair test was really good, really, really strong.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It had a lot of builds and climaxes and surprises you didn't expect. Like that's what every routine I ever do. I want to have at least 1 or 2 surprises you honest to goodness don't see coming.
Yeah. I think one of the things with the chair test as well, like I came up with my own chair test the year before the pandemic because I wanted to do one in a show, and I didn't know which one I wanted to do, so I came up with one. And it's one of those things, once you have the method in your head, it just feels amazing because it's like, it's one of those things that is like, there's so much going on and you're logically running through it, that it is one of those tricks that is as fun to perform as for people to watch, I think, because it's exciting for you too, because there's so many different ways it could go.
Agreed.
Yeah, and then it's something you're talking about with the mentalism is something I've noticed doing it, and people have asked me about it as well. When you're doing strolling, a lot of times like lighting conditions close up aren't always the best, while on stage you can control them. When you're doing things like peaks or something like that for close up, do you have any like tips or advice for people on how to do mentalism in like a banquet hall or like strolling where the lighting and maybe loud music and things can disrupt you?
Loud music is different than lighting. So loud music is killer. And having done so many bar and bat mitzvahs, which are a huge market in New York City, huge market. Like people don't realize how big of a market it is there. You can make your whole living just doing bar and bat mitzvahs. Like I used to do 150 a year of just those. And the budgets of them are larger than weddings in most other places in the world, like big in massive ways. So to answer that question, loud music is very challenging because if you want that emotional bond versus just doing like metal bending or things that are visual almost never plays. Like you could stream your way through a double cross, 80% of people do it, but to do like a mentalism piece, even if it's only 3 minutes, that's going to connect, there has to be some level of exchange. There's some sort of build. You have to create the tension, kind of like a 3-act thing. Like, how does this build? Oh my God, the moment you want to, if people can't hear you, it's very tough, very tough. Yeah. Choice of materials, difficult. I don't know. For peaks, I prefer to learn one and master it better than anything. Some people tell you the opposite. Have an arsenal, have a peak wall, have a peak, have a center tear, have 3 center tears. I'm of the school of thought. Once I've learned one and I can do it incredibly well from every angle, anytime, probably ripped open, 800 trees worth of paper at this point in my life. Very not environmentally sound, but I've done more center tears than any other move in my whole life, way more than double lifts. So it becomes second nature. Like I remember the Ted Leslie videos. I'll never forget when I was watching them, and I didn't like mentalism. Didn't like mentalism at all. And I'm watching them, and he said, Senator built my house, raised my kids, like my whole life is the Senator. And I'm like, what is he talking about? I can swear to you that the man was like, it is the pivotal move of all of mentalism for me is that specific one. Even though like peaks, if my boy Spidey sees this, best peak I've ever seen, like best peak I've never seen. Better. But yeah, like if you can do a great peak, I understand that and I respect that because there's no ripping, there's no leaving people with pieces. That's junk. In a world of COVID now, like even afterwards, are people going to be sensitive towards touching something that you touch? Like, I don't know. I honestly don't know where we go from here. I'm assuming things are going to revert somewhat back to normal within a year. I think the sensitivity and germophobia will go away, but you have to revise some of your act at the moment. You have to be mindful.
I don't think French kiss is going to work anymore.
What's that?
I don't think the mouth-swapping French kiss by Wayne Houchin is going to be done.
That's so funny because a buddy of mine in Spain posted a video of him doing that. I'm like, I hope this was pre-COVID, my man. I hope this was pre-COVID. Yeah, the card from mouth with the return is not as good either.
No,
definitely not. Think about the time you'd have to get a peak though when you're handing them latex gloves or sanitizer or whatever. You'd be like,
right.
Yeah, cool, got it. Let's move on.
I'm waiting for the refillable sanitizer. Like you hold the sanitizer bottle, it's empty, you shake and it's full again. You know, like it's going to be like the way the gum changes into another pack of gum. You have like a fake bottle and then you shake and it's Purell and you go, only the best, only the best. And I'm shocked nobody's done it.
Yeah. There's going to be like 12 on the market now by the summer. But yeah, definitely, I think that's it. And we have a segment on the show that we like to go into called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where we ask the guests to tell us a story about a performance that might have started off well and then went downhill pretty quickly. So is there any funny performance disaster that springs to mind when you're thinking about that?
Yes. So I'll give you one, and then I'm probably going to have to go after The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, guys.
Yeah, that's perfect.
One of the ones I can tell you about is amazing. Is I did a show. Can you grab her for 1 sec? I'm coming back. And so I did a show on stage where they had a smoke machine.
Yeah.
They had a smoke machine, and they went through this whole thing. The CEO is going to come out of a genie lamp. Like this whole thing, everything about it sounds terrible. Everything about it in rehearsal didn't go well. This is staged for like 3,000 people, and I have a 10-minute bit. The smoke machine won't stop going during my show. Like when I'm saying, I mean, you can't see me on stage. And then the person who I pre-showed leaves during every single facet of this. If you were to just say like Murphy's Law disaster, every single thing became more and more of a big disaster. And then the client loved it. I come off the stage sweating, like more than just being wet from my daughter being in the swim pool. Like I'm pouring sweat. I'm like, this may be the worst show of my life. To this day, those people saw me on AGT and they're like, we always remember how great you did that time. Like, great. This is like seared in my brain of post-traumatic stress. Like, it's the worst show I think I've ever done. They loved it.
That's unreal. That's completely like...
It's a good lesson, though, because it really doesn't matter. And I want to get off and apologize profusely. And they were just so happy. And I learned, like, you don't matter. Like, I know we think we do, but it's really, if you made a big impression on the audience, let them enjoy that experience.
Definitely.
Yeah, Paul Daniels actually used to say that in his masterclass, that if they like you in the first 5 minutes, it doesn't matter what you do after that, performance-wise, tricks-wise, or whatever.
Would tend to agree. Mine is saying something like very off-color offensive, but yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed it.
The craziness here, just like a juggling of schedules, just insanity.
No,
I thought everybody'd be sleeping, but it did not work out that way.
And if people want to follow you, I'm sure they can find all your social medias or anything.
OZ the Mentalist. O's the Mentalist.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And we'll be back next time. And for everything else, you can go to deceivereality.com for all your magic needs. So thank you so much, guys. And we'll see you again next.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care, guys.
No problem. Thank you.